Hi. We're in a new location.
We're out on the porch. We use our powers for good. I'm Dory, and this is my sister Meg, and we're the hosts today. Welcome. Welcome to my. Oh my gosh, it's beautiful in the Midwest. That's what the theme should be. We were blessed to have had just spent a weekend with. So let's describe this. She used to be our sister-in-law, but she's not married to her brother anymore. So now she's our former sister-in-law.
But I just think of her as my sister always.
Yes, but I'm just saying that just for actual context. And we haven't,
And I've known her since I was, what, 7?
or yeah, or less,
Or less, 6
right? I've known her since I was 16, right? We went to high school together, right? And then she also came up with her two daughters that are 20 and 22. And I tend to refer to them as girls, and I do that out of love, not out of, it's all out of love. They just, in my mind, are still like 2 and 4. But we'd seen her, but we hadn't spent quality time with her in probably 15 or more years.
Yeah.
So just acknowledging like it had been a super long time.
Not in this concentrated form, like days. We got to spend days together.
Yeah, we got to like stay up late and wake up early, and just all the loveliness that comes from having people stay in your home, and just having all this quality time. So some of the broad themes that we were left with out of gratitude when we look back or reflected on the weekend was that she, our sister in law, was also in a place where she's doing her own work, and that we were really clear before they came like, get your needs met. If you need some quiet time or downtime, like just voice that. Or if we're doing something or talking about something that's uncomfortable, you have questions about, we just gave all this permission ahead of time. Or, like we've talked about in other episodes, creating context. Like, she hadn't been in my house and they haven't stayed here, and like, this is what my house rules look like. Speaking up for yourself, taking time if you need time, just laying these things out. And that it turned out that we were all on a similar page just felt like such a blessing.
And then also we spoke about how we don't behave like we used to when we all got together as family.
Yes.
Like the toxic teasing and things like that, that's no longer part of our everyday.
Yeah, that we were clear about that with her.
Yeah.
Because we hadn't seen her. But also, not that we talked about the toxicity a ton when we were young, because we wouldn't have called it that. Just all the memories and reminiscing, and was lovely, but also had me really aware of like what it used to look like versus what it looked like now.
Mm-hmm.
And so on the back end of that, what we wanted to do, in this collection of episodes, because you know that we tape all of them when Meg's in town, because she's only in town every 6 weeks. And so the theme will be speaking up for yourself and boundaries, because we did a ton of that over the weekend. Yeah. So the first thing we're going to talk about is when silence feels safer than speaking up for yourself. And certainly, I think most of us could reflect back to our childhood when, like, who had language for that, right? I am always saying, like, well, in our generation, Meg, versus like my kids have tools for that, but that's something that I taught them. There wasn't good language for that when we grew up.
Mm-hmm.
And so, looking back when we were young, just the ways that we not only didn't know how to do that, but like, because you didn't get your need met, you just stopped asking.
Right.
Right. Right.
Or your coping mechanism was, for me, it was always acting out sideways.
Yeah.
So I remember you guys would come home for Christmas, me being the baby. The older three were in college roughly at the same time. I remember I think it was a Thanksgiving. And I was always so excited for you guys to come home. So it was like mom would put me to work and which I loved cleaning.
Yeah.
I always loved before and afters, whether it was cleaning a bathroom or a living room or whatever.
Yeah.
But I remember I would spend hours like cleaning the bathroom and doing all these things. And then you guys would come home, mom would be in the kitchen and be very busy. And then it was like I disappeared into the walls and there was teasing and it was like but I didn't feel like I was surrounded by bigger people. Like I never felt, where was mom for me then?
Right.
So that's when I would sprint up the stairs because somebody would hurt my feelings or whatever.
Yeah.
And I would slam the door until she heard me. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't until she heard me crying that she would actually come up. Mm. But I think it was like every Christmas, every Thanksgiving.
Well, I think it was every time we were all together, maybe.
Yeah. Oh, for sure.
Yeah. And then at what point, and you might not be able to put your finger on it, at what point did you kind of realize, like, oh, I could do this differently, or this isn't meeting my need, or
I don't think I'd ever. I think it was more my hormones kicked in, and it was like, fine, I don't want to be around you guys. Like I actually want to lock my door now.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
I don't know that I ever actually got my needs met in that way.
sure. You met them
In her
yourself.
life, yeah,
Yeah,
well, yeah, yeah, self soothing.
yeah, yeah.
So,
Yeah, and in hearing you say that, because you weren't around, you weren't old enough when Dad was around. Um, as I mentioned, like our dad was alcoholic and he was just super volatile. Um, there was a part of like periodically when I would ask for something and then to watch him explode. Um, it's a funny awareness, like, oh, I don't like how that feels, so I'm just not going to ask, right? And then you're kind of floundering around, trying to figure out, like, I think about like when I was young, I don't even know that I knew what I needed, right? Was I hungry? Was I, right? But I do remember like um feeling a certain way and then going in the kitchen and like eating some pretzels or seeing if that would
right.
feel better, or like, with the minimal tools that I had. But I certainly learned very early on to be quiet, and stay off the radar. And then we also grew up in a generation that was like, oh, do you want me to stop this car? Do you want me to stop this car with your little outburst there? Or do you want me to give you something to cry about? No, I don't. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So just being aware of all the ways that we were encouraged to be quiet. Um, and then my awareness of that now is realizing, and it's interesting because I think I certainly have been healthy a lot of my life, like doing my work, which Megan and I've talked about, right? I've been doing it since I was in my 20s. Um, and as healthy as I was at any one time, I could only voice as much of my need as much as I could be present to myself. Right. So like even in my old life, and my old life is when I was married. Well, those are wrong. This would be old life, not married. In my old life, but that means when I was married. Um, just I could ask to have my needs met, or I would, but then the coping that I used with the dysfunction that we had, I wasn't present enough to myself to fully ask. Does
Mm-hmm.
that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So it's kind of like half asking, which then kind of becomes this funny loop of like, and inherently you don't meet the need because you discount what I'm saying, which is that's its own thing. And so then I'm adjusting what I'm saying. I still asked, but I've completely shifted what the ask was to at least let it come out of my mouth.
And do you think it's because you know what the answer is going to be before you?
Well, and then it kind of becomes codependent, right?
Right.
For sure, right. So I suspect, based on history, which is 100% of the time, the behavior, the response to my request was the same. That I just then modulated the request, and I'm confident I got to a place that I just stopped asking, right? Which then, circa now, that I really know myself and trust myself. And I've done a whole different amount of work since the divorce to better understand myself and why I stayed in that relationship, which I've talked about. But to then be in a relationship with my partner and to be able to vocalize really specifically, like, hey, like, oh, gosh, I can't even think of what he said one day. We were newly together and he had said something along the lines of, like, hey, just relax, like, kind of like, just a minute. And I was like, a part of me, I'm like, I could just feel like the rage building up like a big grizzly bear. Like I literally was just gonna claw his eyes out.
Nobody puts baby in the corner.
Nobody puts baby in that corner. And then in that moment, because we were, him and I dialogue and talk through things, and I'm like, oh hey, I'm like, I don't fucking like that at all. Like, please don't ever say that to me again. It's super triggering. Here's why I grew up with that, but then also my old life, blah 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 blah. Okay, so he's like, oh my gosh, for sure, right? Well, I don't hear hide nor hair of that for 3.5 years. And literally 2 weeks ago, we were moving something out of the front door and really running off this porch. And I'm moving faster than he is with this heavy thing we're carrying. And he's like, just slow down or relax or something. And instantly, I can just feel the rage, right?
Yeah.
I feel he's poked the bear. And the instant he said the words, he was in the middle of taking a breath and he's like, oh my gosh, I apologize. I know that you told me not to say that, and I'm really sorry. And he continued to apologize like 9 times. But as soon as it came out of his mouth, I instantly felt the bear just calm back down and just, in this tiny little. And finally, when I could get out of myself, and I was like, oh, you don't have to keep apologizing. you landed the first apology. But in that moment, to feel so heard and so validated by just this simple reflection of him. I'm using that as an example because it's so simple,
Mm-hmm.
so simple. But the gift that I'm with someone that stores these data points and then can pull them out, right? Which is really the point of asking to have your needs met and getting to a place with our partner and our people that we then are letting them know, like, okay, this is important, but then also, if we've breached that, this is what that looks like on the back end to fix it. I just
Right.
literally just want a quick apology and an acknowledgement. And then to feel like that it actually worked, it was like,
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah. So that's my lovely share today.
That's a good one.
Is that I'm with a lovely human who respects and honors my needs. Yeah. And I'm just, and then the other part of that is it's possible, right? Because there certainly was a time in my life I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, at a minimum, just having awareness of all the ways that we are silent and maybe planting a seed of being aware of maybe I don't even know what my needs are.
Yeah.
So, I don't even know what I would voice in the first place.
Right. And as you're silent here, most likely you've got lots of things to
Right.
say or you're thinking about in your head that need to come out.
Yeah. And possibly in the short run is just shedding some light on what other stuff you're hearing back here that's not getting a chance to be
Right.
expressed. And that could come out. I'm not a big journaler, but this would be what journaling could be for, right? Is you're just writing some of those things down to put it in front of you, like, huh, that's fascinating. And honestly, most of the needs that we have aren't complicated,
Right.
right? They're simple.
Right.
Like, I just want you to not do that thing.
And I also might need a hug.
Right.
Right.
I always need hug. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
I feel like that's what mine boils down to. I'm like, man, hug, please.
I just want you to slow down and listen to me.
Yeah.
And I don't want you to respond. We've talked about this before. You don't even need to say anything. I just want to let this out of my mouth and be heard, right? Just to get it out of here.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you for joining us today for We Use Our Powers for Good. Please like, subscribe, and share.
Yeah.
And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode.
Okay, bye.
Bye.